Slavoj Žižek, one of the most provocative philosophers of our time, once said that love today is no longer about surrender, risk, or vulnerability. It has instead been transformed into something that looks eerily like a consumer good. The way people talk about relationships now sounds more like business negotiations than poetry. We hear phrases like finding the right partner, upgrading to someone better, return on investment, or settling down with a good option. All of these expressions reveal something unsettling. Love has been absorbed by the logic of the market, and Zizek is ruthless in exposing this truth. In this video, we will break down Zizek's brutal analysis of why love has become a marketplace in modern times. We will explore how dating apps mirror the logic of shopping catalogs, how relationships are now seen through the lens of profit and loss, and how the fear of risk has stripped love of its depth. We will also uncover the paradox Zizek highlights. The more we try to control and guarantee love, the less capable we become of experiencing it. So let us begin by examining how this shift happened, how humanity went from seeing love as a mystery to be lived into a transaction to be managed. Part 1. From passion to commodity, how capitalism reshaped love. To understand why Zizek insists love has become a market, we first need to recognize how capitalism does not simply stay in the realm of economics. It invades human psychology, desire, and even the most intimate aspects of our lives. Capitalism's ultimate trick is that it doesn't just sell you objects, it sells you fantasies. It whispers to you that if you buy this perfume, this car, this lifestyle package, then love will follow. In other words, commodities become substitutes for genuine emotional connection. Think about the culture of dating apps. What do they resemble? They look less like places to meet someone accidentally, organically and chaotically, and more like vast digital marketplaces. You browse through profiles the same way you scroll through an online store. You add to cart by swiping right. You reject with a single flick. Each potential partner becomes a product with listed specifications: height, job, hobbies, photos carefully curated like advertising campaigns. The very architecture of these platforms reduces love to selection and purchase. And just like in any market, there is competition, scarcity, and branding. Zizek would say this is not accidental but structural. Capitalism cannot tolerate unpredictability. It wants to channel everything into measurable, manageable systems of exchange. Love, which was once an uncontrollable eruption of chaos, has been tamed into something resembling an app interface. People now speak about compatibility as if it were a technical specification, like two software programs that either integrate smoothly or crash. But here's the paradox. The more love is organized in this way, the less satisfying it becomes. Why? Because genuine love always involves risk. It requires throwing yourself into the unknown without guarantees. Yet capitalism has trained us to avoid risk at all costs. We want insurance, warranties, and exit strategies, even in relationships. So instead of asking, do I love this person beyond reason? The modern subject asks, is this person a good investment of my time and energy? That very question kills the essence of love before it even begins. Zizek provocatively suggests that the commercialization of love also affects gender dynamics. For centuries, societies often arranged marriages through economic agreements, dowries, family alliances, and contracts. But in those systems, people were at least honest about the transactional nature of love. Today, the market logic has returned, but it disguises itself as freedom. We think we are choosing partners for love, but we are really shopping with criteria dictated by social media status, economic power, and physical attractiveness. Love becomes branding. A woman might desire not just a man, but what he represents, his lifestyle, his symbolic value, his market position. A man might desire not just a woman, but the image of beauty she performs, her social currency, and the prestige she adds to his own identity. In both cases, the beloved becomes a commodity consumed for self-enhancement. Part 2. The illusion of choice. Why freedom in love is just another trap. One of Zizek's most unsettling observations about modern love is that what we think of as freedom of choice is actually another form of control. We believe that having endless options through dating apps, global networks, or social media makes us freer to find love. But Zizek would argue the opposite. Too much choice paralyzes us. And instead of liberating desire, it turns love into endless shopping. Imagine walking into a supermarket with 2 options for cereal. You choose one and you're satisfied. Now imagine walking into a supermarket with 200 options. Suddenly, your choice becomes a source of anxiety. Did I pick the right one? What if the other option was better? This is exactly what happens in love today. The illusion of infinite choice produces restlessness. People cannot commit because they are haunted by the possibility of a better option waiting just around the corner. Zizek points out that capitalism thrives on this dissatisfaction. It doesn't want you to be fulfilled because fulfillment ends consumption. Instead, it keeps you suspended in desire, always chasing, never arriving. Modern love mirrors this perfectly. You match with someone, but after a few dates, you wonder, could I do better? You stay in the cycle of searching, consuming, and discarding. The market thrives. You, however, remain unsatisfied. But here's the cruelest part. Even when people do settle into relationships, the market logic doesn't disappear. It simply mutates. Couples begin to speak of relationships in terms of productivity. We are growing together. This relationship is helping me become my best self. We are building something. While these phrases sound positive, Zizek would remind us that they reflect the capitalist mindset of constant progress and optimization. Love is no longer simply about being with someone. It is about producing outcomes, measurable growth, and visible results. This endless pursuit of optimization in love leaves no room for the absurd, irrational dimension of desire. True love is not about self-improvement. It is about surrendering to something greater than yourself. Even if it does not make sense, even if it destabilizes you. But in a world dominated by market logic, surrender looks like weakness, irrationality, and even failure. Zizek is brutal when he says modern people do not truly want love. They want its sanitized version: passion without pain, intimacy without vulnerability, commitment without risk. And just as fast food offers the illusion of a meal without the depth of nourishment, modern love offers the illusion of intimacy without the terrifying leap into the unknown. Part 3. Desire without depth. How capitalism manufactures emptiness. Zizek often says that capitalism is not just an economic system. It is a cultural machine that colonizes the very structure of human desire. And nowhere is this clearer than in modern love. What does capitalism do to desire? It makes it endless, insatiable, and shallow. It keeps you constantly wanting but never fulfilled. In the past, love was tied to destiny, family, religion, and sometimes even fate. There was a sense that love connected you to something larger than yourself, something transcendent, irrational, and often terrifying. When Dante wrote about Beatrice, or when Shakespeare wrote about Romeo and Juliet, love was depicted as a force so strong that it could destroy you, a force that existed beyond reason or calculation. Love was depth. It was a plunge into the abyss. But in today's world, love is increasingly marketed as surface. Instead of plunging into another person's mystery, people skim across images, profiles, and curated identities. Desire is no longer about uncovering the depths of the other. It is about satisfying momentary cravings. You do not ask, who is this person beyond what I see? Instead, you ask, does this person give me pleasure now? Zizek would call this the triumph of consumer logic in the realm of love. Consumer culture thrives on keeping you slightly dissatisfied, hungry, enough to keep consuming, but never fully nourished. So it manufactures desire as a series of shallow attractions, brief encounters, fleeting obsessions. And once the novelty fades, people move on, seeking the next stimulation. This is why so many people complain about modern dating feeling empty. The structure itself is designed to make it empty. When you consume people like products, you cannot be surprised when they leave no lasting taste. A profile swipe can never replace the trembling of your heart, When you meet someone in the chaos of real life, a filtered photo can never replace the strange, inexplicable attraction you feel when you look into someone's eyes in the middle of an ordinary day. Part 4. The commodification of intimacy, selling what should be sacred. If there is one thing Zizek is ruthless about, it is pointing out how capitalism turns even the most sacred aspects of life into commodities. And intimacy, the private world of affection, sexuality, and vulnerability, is no exception. Modern love is not just influenced by the market. It is sold by the market. Think about how relationships are displayed online. Couples no longer just exist for themselves, they exist as content. They curate their vacations, anniversaries, and daily rituals into posts that gain likes and validation. Intimacy, once hidden and sacred, becomes public performance. The market rewards those who can make their love look enviable. This is what Zizek means when he says capitalism turns love into spectacle. The value of intimacy is not in the experience itself, but in how it appears to others. And then there is the direct commodification of sexuality. Dating apps monetize attraction by selling boosts, premium features, and algorithmic advantages. Influencers monetize beauty and desirability by turning their bodies into brands. Pornography sells not just sex, but fantasies of intimacy. Even therapy, once meant to heal wounds of love, is packaged as a market service promising quick-fix solutions. Everything becomes monetized. Zizek would say this creates a crisis of authenticity. When intimacy is constantly put on display, how do you know if what you feel is genuine or just another performance? When every gesture of affection can be monetized, how can you be sure it is not simply another transaction? Love collapses into spectacle, and spectacle collapses into emptiness. But there is a darker dimension. Once intimacy becomes commodified, it also becomes subject to comparison. Just as you compare products online before buying, you now compare partners, relationships, and experiences. People no longer ask, "Am I happy in my relationship?" They ask, "Am I happier than others?" The logic of competition poisons love, transforming it from a private bond into a public contest. Part 5. Risk, vulnerability, and the death of romantic courage. Zizek often describes true love as a terrifying leap, a decision to risk everything without guarantee. To love is to gamble with your heart, to surrender control, to enter a space where you might be destroyed. In this sense, love is not safe, it is dangerous. But in modern times, people have lost the courage to take this risk. Why? Because capitalism conditions us to seek security, insurance, and guarantees. Every decision must be calculated. Every investment must yield profit. Every risk must be minimized. This logic seeps into relationships, making people terrified of giving themselves fully. They want contracts, not chaos. They want safety, not surrender. Zizek explains that this obsession with safety produces the death of romantic courage. People no longer declare love with the same intensity as before. They no longer write letters that risk rejection or confess feelings that might be mocked. Instead, they test the waters, drop hints, and wait for signals. They outsource vulnerability to technology, using apps and texting strategies to minimize the risk of humiliation. But here's the tragedy. Without risk, love loses its power. The greatness of love lies precisely in its unpredictability, in the possibility of heartbreak, in the leap into the unknown. A love that is guaranteed is not love, it is a contract. And Zizek warns us that modern relationships increasingly resemble contracts of mutual benefit, not passionate leaps of faith. This loss of risk also reshapes desire itself. People no longer desire the mystery of the other. They desire predictability. They want someone who fits their lifestyle, who will not destabilize them too much, who will not demand too much of their soul. But love that does not destabilize is not love. It is comfort. And comfort, while pleasant, never transforms the human spirit. Zizek reminds us that all great romances in history, whether tragic or triumphant, were marked by risk. Tristan and Isolde, Romeo and Juliet, even the passionate letters of philosophers and poets, all were fueled by the willingness to leap into danger. Love in its truest form has always been about stepping into the abyss. But in our time, the abyss has been closed, fenced off, and labeled unsafe. Part 6. Love as a Symptom. What Zizek reveals about desire and lack. Zizek often draws from psychoanalysis, especially Lacan, to explain the structure of desire. For Lacan and Zizek following him, desire is never simply about the object in front of you. It is always about something missing, something absent, something you can never fully possess. This is why love feels both intoxicating and painful. It exposes the fundamental lack at the core of human existence. Now, in pre-modern times, this lack was accepted as part of life. Love was understood as a mystery, a force that could not be controlled or fully explained. But in modern capitalist culture, lack is intolerable. The market tells you constantly that any sense of emptiness can be fixed by consumption. If you feel lonely, buy something. If you feel incomplete, upgrade your life. If you feel unloved, there must be a product, a program, or an app that can solve the problem. This means love itself is no longer seen as a mysterious encounter with another soul, but as a problem to be managed. People now treat relationships like self-help projects. They ask, how can I maximize satisfaction, minimize conflict, and ensure stability? But Zizek points out the irony. The very attempt to manage love kills its essence. For love is not about eliminating lack. It is about embracing it. Love is choosing a person despite their imperfections, despite the gaps, despite the wounds. Zizek goes further. He argues that love is not just about finding the right one. Love is about a rupture in your world. It is about encountering someone who suddenly becomes more important than your own comfort, your own ego, even your own survival. In Zizek's words, love is an event that reorders reality itself. But when love is treated like a market transaction, it loses this disruptive power. Instead of rupturing your world, it fits neatly into it, like another purchase on your list. Think of how people describe relationships today. She completes me. He makes me whole. We are perfectly compatible. These phrases sound beautiful, but Zizek would call them illusions. No one can complete you because lack is built into human existence. And compatibility is often just another word for predictability, a way of avoiding the terrifying mystery of the other. True love is not about completion. It is about confronting the fact that you will never be complete and still choosing the other anyway. This is why Zizek is suspicious of modern dating culture. It sells the fantasy of perfect matches, algorithmic soulmates, and compatibility scores. But in truth, love has never been about perfection. It has always been about imperfection. About the madness of choosing someone not because they are ideal, but because something about them ruptures your world. Part 7. Can love survive the market? Zizek's radical hope. After so much critique, one may wonder, is Zizek saying that love is dead? Has capitalism destroyed our ability to experience passion, intimacy, and transformation? Surprisingly, Zizek's answer is no. He does not believe love is dead. Instead, he believes love has become harder, more dangerous, and more radical than ever before. In a world where everything is reduced to consumption, the very act of loving someone deeply becomes an act of rebellion. To love is to resist the logic of the market. It is to say, I choose this person not because they are efficient, not because they maximize my pleasure, not because they complete me, but because something in them wounds me, destabilizes me, and yet makes life worth living. Zizek insists that true love always contains madness. And in a culture obsessed with rational choices, efficiency, and control, embracing madness becomes revolutionary. To love is to step outside the logic of profit and loss. It is to embrace vulnerability instead of safety, risk instead of guarantees, depth instead of surface. But how can people reclaim this kind of love in modern times? Zizek would not give you a self-help formula, because love is not something you can manage. Instead, he would say, you must accept the terror of love. You must accept that love will wound you, destabilize you, and demand sacrifices. And yet, precisely in that wound lies the possibility of transformation. Zizek is not a romantic in the traditional sense. He does not believe love is pure bliss. He knows love is often painful, messy, and tragic. But for him, that is exactly why it matters. In a world that constantly offers you easy pleasures, quick fixes, and shallow attractions, love demands something greater. It demands courage. It demands that you risk your heart, even when there are no guarantees. So can love survive the market? Yes, but only as resistance. Love today is not the default. It is not what happens when you swipe enough times, or when you find someone who ticks all the boxes. Love is what happens when you break free from the logic of consumption, when you allow yourself to be destabilized by another human being, and when you embrace the madness that the market tries so hard to erase. Zizek's final warning about modern love. So what have we uncovered? Zizek has exposed the painful truth that in modern times, love has been reshaped by the market. Desire is manufactured, intimacy is commodified, and risk is eliminated. We live in a world where relationships resemble contracts, where partners are chosen like products, and where love itself is consumed and discarded like any other commodity. But Zizek does not leave us with despair. Instead, he leaves us with a challenge. If you want to experience love in its truest form, you must step outside the logic of the market. You must reject the illusion of perfection, the obsession with safety, and the shallow satisfaction of consumer desire. You must be willing to embrace risk, vulnerability, and the terrifying madness of giving yourself to another person without guarantees. Love is not about finding the perfect product. Love is about being wounded, destabilized, and yet transformed by another human being. It is about accepting imperfection, sharing incompleteness, and choosing someone not because they maximize your comfort, but because they open you to life's deepest truths. Zizek's final warning is this: if we continue to treat love as a market, we will destroy the very thing that makes it sacred. But if we dare to resist, if we dare to embrace the irrational, if we dare to risk everything for love, then love will survive, not as a commodity, but as the most radical act of freedom in a world enslaved by consumption. In the end, the choice is ours. Will we continue to consume love like another product? Or will we reclaim love as the dangerous, transformative force it has always been?